And the other is a bride price. Okay, maybe some of you have heard of this, or maybe some of you have not heard of this. But a bride price means the groom and the groom's family must pay a certain fee to get married to the bride. Hey everyone, so we're still here exploring the marriage park. And so now I want to get back to what we were talking about, which is China has become a materialistic society. And notice I say has become because it wasn't always like that. But nowadays, so much in China revolves around money and the exchange of money. And so when considering getting married for their child, you could see here these moms discussing whether their children should be together. The idea of money comes into play, and it comes in two forms. One is whether the groom can provide a house and a car and material wealth for his new family if he's getting married. And the other is a bride price. Okay, maybe some of you have heard of this, or maybe some of you have not heard of this. But a bride price means the groom and the groom's family must pay a certain fee to get married to the bride, and for the bride's family to give away the bride. And you can see here all of these pink sheets of paper. These are all potential women looking to get married. Okay. So this idea of a bride price, a house, and a car, these are all qualifications that a man must already have in order to be considered a successful bachelor candidate. Mind you, they must already own all of these things. And considering, the average salary in China, considering what most people can make and how much a house is and how much a car is in terms of what they can make, if you do the math, which I've seen some videos where they discuss doing the math, it would take over 30 years on an average Chinese salary just to afford to pay for a house, to pay for a mortgage, to buy a car. And so there are some serious problems in terms of developing this material background first. Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit to the gender imbalance, which many of you know about. Of course, there are approximately, I don't know, 2 to 3 or 5% more men than women in China. And some might not consider this so large, but when we're talking about a country of 1.4 billion people, that is a huge gap. Most of these men live in rural areas, while a large majority of these women have moved to urban areas and have started to work. So going back to the idea of this one child policy, when you have one child, that child is expected to go to work, and that child is expected to earn a salary, whether she is a woman or he is a man. And that has really changed this idea of, a man and a woman coming together and earning together, because it has solidified this only child not only as bearing all the responsibility for a family, but having to work just as any man would have to work. Okay, so all of these women are pushed into the workplace. Some of them are pushed to attain master's degrees. And in some cases, these master's degrees just act as a few more years barrier for them to, take it easy before finding an actual grueling job in the Chinese workplace. So the attitude has shifted, and the work culture is also a part of this. The attitude towards getting married has shifted in terms of being able to afford children, of course, which is on everyone's mind, but also having the obligation of work. Okay, maybe you've heard of the Chinese working culture. I will definitely be making another video about this. But this idea of 996 is indiscriminate for men and for women. So if you expect to be working these hours at a corporation or a company the same as any man would, in what way could you hope to raise a family? In what way could you hope to raise children? Of course, I'm talking about the higher up white collar jobs. And there is a large percentage of Chinese people who don't live in that lifestyle, who live in more rural areas, and so they can afford their time. Okay, not only money, but time is needed to raise a child. And so, literally, these women have no time due to their obligations to their workplace, to their job. And this working culture attitude has shifted the whole attitude on marriage as well, and the affordability of children. So women see their obligation to their job, their income, their salary to be a much more important factor than finding a partner, finding a husband that will work together with them to bring up a family, to raise children. And so this is something that is on the minds of a lot of women. And when they see this, they fall into the idea that they should enjoy their life in the moment rather than focus on even meeting a potential spouse, even meeting to have children. And this idea comes into the idea of leftover women or shengnu, right? Maybe you've heard of this term. And these ideas are, of course, perpetuated by the West as well, where women should be boss girls and should get their money, pay their own bills, etc. But it goes much deeper in China because these women are only children. And so this forced responsibility is on them. Is coming from all of these parents here that you see in this marriage park looking, scrutinizing these potential matches for their children. One, to have blind dates with these people, setting up blind dates for their child to meet these potential suitors. And it has become the parents' responsibility because most of these workers, most of these women now are enjoying their life in the digital era of escapism, which I can go on about in another video, in which most Chinese people do use escapism as a way to leave the conditions that they see around them. But this is pretty much why marriage has become a big problem in China. And as you can see, there are many factors working together to create this problem, which has the ultimate goal of making a decline in the overall birth rate. So these factors include forcing education onto the child when they are very young, defocusing romantic relationships as they grow older, and conceiving material love over, let's say, a more spiritual or sexual, emotional love, requiring things like a bride price, requiring material possessions like a house and a car just to be considered qualified to get married. The overall attitude caused by the working culture, the gender imbalance, the rural versus urban populations, the affordability of children, and this idea of a leftover woman, which is a woman that has grown a little bit too old to be considered of marriageable age. So, as you can see in China, there's a lot of factors to consider when thinking about marriage and people getting married. So, if you enjoyed this content, if you found it interesting or informative, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.